the massive crystal chamber filled with voices speaking in dozens of languages. Translation devices hummed as they converted alien words into meaning that other species could understand. Ambassador Crix adjusted his six-limbed frame in his specialized chair and watched the other delegates settle into their positions around the circular hall. Every seat had an occupant except one. The empty chair marked with Earth's symbol sat silent like it had for the past 3 years. No human had ever filled that seat, not once since they joined the Galactic Council. The other ambassadors barely noticed the absence anymore. Crix tapped his clawed finger against his desk to call attention. His insect-like features reflected the chamber's blue lighting as he began the session. We gather for our 847th meeting. I note that our Terran members have again chosen not to attend. A few delegates shifted in their seats, but most ignored the comment. Ambassador Thel, whose slug-like body stretched across a custom platform, made a wet sound that his translator converted to speech. Perhaps we should remove them from our membership list. They contribute nothing to our discussions. Their application fee was paid in full, reminded Nas, the scaled reptilian from Serpentine Prime. They met all requirements for joining, but I agree their silence shows disrespect. Orth, the energy being who appeared as a shimmering cloud of light, pulsed with agreement. 3 years without a single representative. They clearly think themselves above our authority. The Council had grown used to Earth's absence. When humans first applied for membership, many species expected them to be eager participants. Their application showed a world that had recently developed space travel and wanted to join the galactic community. The paperwork looked normal and their technology seemed basic but functional. Instead, Earth paid their fees, received their council documents, and then vanished from all official business. No trade requests, no territorial disputes to mediate, no technology sharing agreements. Nothing. Intelligence reports suggest unusual activity in their home system, Nas continued, his yellow eyes narrowing. Increased industrial output, military construction. Should this concern us? Crix's mandibles clicked in what passed for laughter. Among his species. Earth controls one small planet with primitive fusion engines. Even if they built 1,000 ships, what threat could they pose to our combined fleets? No. Their absence stems from arrogance, not strength. The session continued with routine business. Mining rights in the Vega sector needed renewal. 2 species disputed ownership of an uninhabited system. Trade route protections required updating. All the normal work of governing dozens of worlds, across hundreds of light years. None of the delegates knew that deep beneath Earth's surface, massive construction projects operated around the clock. In hidden facilities carved from solid rock, humans worked with focused determination. The projects had begun the day after Earth received its first council meeting invitation. General Hayes reviewed status reports in a command center that officially did not exist. Banks of screens showed progress from 50 different locations around the globe. How many ships completed this month? He asked his aide. Colonel Davis pulled up the latest numbers. 43 vessels finished final testing. The new production line in Antarctica should double that rate. Good. Any word from our observation posts? The Council continues to ignore our absence. They seem to think we're too primitive to matter. Hayes allowed himself a small smile. Perfect. The longer they believe that, the more time we have to prepare. Any signs the hegemony is moving forward with their expansion plans? Intelligence confirms they're massing fleets in the outer systems. The Council species are getting nervous, but they still believe their combined forces can handle any threat. The hegemony represented everything humans had learned to fear about galactic politics. 4 aggressive species had formed an alliance dedicated to conquest and expansion. Their philosophy was simple: submit or be destroyed. They had already absorbed 6 smaller civilizations, adding their technology and resources to an ever-growing war machine. Earth's analysts had studied every available record of hegemony tactics. They enslaved populations, stripped worlds of resources, and converted everything to military production. Worse, their expansion was accelerating. Intelligence suggested they would move against Council territories within the year. The council species seemed blind to the approaching threat. They debated trade policies while their enemy prepared for war. They argued over mining rights while dreadnoughts gathered just beyond their borders. Their peaceful nature had become a weakness that would soon be exploited. But humans had learned different lessons from their violent history. They understood that sometimes peace could only be preserved through strength. While other species talked, Earth had been building something unprecedented. Back in the council chambers, the delegates concluded their session with the usual ceremonial closing. Crix thanked everyone for their participation and reminded them of next month's meeting. The empty chair remained unnoticed as representatives filed out to return to their home systems. Within hours, encrypted messages traveled through council networks. Intelligence agencies shared observations about increased shipping to certain sectors. Military analysts noted unusual energy signatures from deep space monitoring stations. But none of the pieces formed a complete picture. On Earth, President Martinez concluded her daily briefing with military leadership. The Council remains unaware of our true capabilities. The hegemony shows no signs of changing their expansion timeline. Are we ready to implement the plan? All major systems are operational, General Hayes reported. Ship production has exceeded projections. Our new technologies have passed every combat simulation. The fleet awaits your orders. Then we proceed to the next phase. How long until the hegemony makes their move? Intelligence estimates 6 to 8 months. They're building up forces for a massive offensive against multiple council worlds simultaneously. Martinez nodded grimly. By then, we'll be ready to introduce ourselves properly to the galaxy. Earth may have missed every council meeting, but we're about to make an entrance no one will forget. The president looked out the window of her office toward the night sky. Somewhere among those stars, an entire galaxy continued its daily business, unaware that everything was about to change. Species that had dismissed humanity as irrelevant would soon learn why Earth had remained silent for so long. The empty chair in the council chambers would not remain empty much longer. Warning sirens echoed through the council station as emergency broadcasts flooded communication channels. Ambassador Crix rushed through the corridors, his multiple legs clicking against the metal floor. Other delegates hurried past him, their faces showing fear that transcended species barriers. The emergency session convened within an hour of the first reports. As delegates took their seats, holographic displays showed star maps marked with threatening red symbols. The hegemony had announced their intentions to the entire galaxy. Order! We must have order, Crix called out, though his own voice trembled. The usually calm insect ambassador showed signs of panic as he read from the official message. The hegemony coalition declares its right to bring stability to the chaotic outer regions. All inhabited systems between coordinates 77 Alpha and 1212 Zeta are now claimed as hegemony territory. Shocked silence filled the chamber. Those coordinates included 15 council member worlds and dozens of independent colonies. Millions of beings would fall under hegemony rule if their claim went unchallenged. Ambassador Thell's slug-like form quivered with terror. They cannot simply declare ownership of our worlds. The treaties, the agreements, mean nothing to them. Naz interrupted, his reptilian scales darkening with stress. The hegemony recognizes no authority but force. They have done this before. Reports continued flowing in throughout the session. Long-range sensors detected massive fleet movements in hegemony space, hundreds of warships gathering at jump points, preparing for coordinated strikes across multiple systems. The scope of their planned offensive exceeded anything seen in modern galactic history. Admiral Vec, the aquatic representative from the deep current worlds, studied tactical displays with growing alarm. His species had produced some of the galaxy's finest naval strategists, but even he struggled to find hope in the numbers. Their battle fleet consists of over 800 vessels, he reported, water cycling through his environmental suit as he spoke. 47 dreadnought-class ships, each capable of bombarding a planet into submission. Our combined council forces total 300 ships of various sizes. The mathematics were simple and terrifying. The hegemony had spent decades building their war machine while council species focused on trade and diplomacy. Now that peaceful approach threatened to doom them all. "What of the core worlds?" asked Orth, the energy being flickering with desperate hope. "Surely the ancient civilizations will assist us." Crix activated a communication recording that had arrived only hours before. The message came from Nexus Prime, the artificial intelligence that spoke for the core worlds. Its synthetic voice carried millennia of cold indifference. "The ancient species of the Galactic Center will not intervene in territorial disputes among younger civilizations. You must resolve your own conflicts, through whatever means you possess." The recording ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. The core worlds, with their advanced technology and vast fleets, would watch from their protected systems while the galaxy burned. Their policy of non-interference had remained unchanged for thousands of years. Panic spread through the assembly as the reality set in. They faced an enemy with superior numbers, advanced weapons, and complete willingness to use overwhelming force. Several delegates began discussing evacuation plans for their home worlds. "Perhaps we should consider negotiating with them," suggested one ambassador from the peaceful garden worlds. "Surely some arrangement could be reached." Nas hissed in disgust. "The hegemony does not negotiate. They conquer. Look at the fate of the Crystal Singers, the Deep Dwellers, the Star Wanderers, all absorbed into their war machine." The debate continued for hours without resolution. Military experts presented scenarios that all ended in defeat. Diplomats suggested strategies that the hegemony would never accept. Scientists proposed technological solutions that would take years to develop. As discussions grew more desperate, a few delegates remembered Earth's empty chair. Ambassador Thel raised the question that others had been thinking. What of the Terrans? Their application mentioned military experience. Perhaps we should try contacting them directly. Admiral Vec pulled up archived files from Earth's membership application. Their submission showed nuclear capabilities and basic space combat vessels. Primitive by our standards, but their historical records indicated unusual tactical thinking. 1. Backward world with fusion drives, Crix replied dismissively. What could they contribute against dreadnoughts armed with antimatter weapons? But privately, some council members wondered if they had underestimated the silent humans. Intelligence reports from the past months showed increased activity in Earth's system. Military construction, expanded mining operations, unusual energy signatures from their industrial facilities. The hegemony's ultimatum arrived during the night cycle, transmitted on all frequencies to ensure galaxy-wide distribution. Fleet Commander Zeth appeared on screens throughout council space, his cybernetic implants glowing as he delivered the message. Species of the outer regions, your chaotic independence ends now. Submit to hegemony authority and accept your role in our orderly civilization, or face the consequences of resistance. You have 72 hours to respond. The transmission ended with footage of hegemony fleets moving into attack positions. Massive dreadnoughts accompanied by swarms of escort vessels all heading toward council territory. The sight terrified even experienced military officers. Emergency meetings continued around the clock. Some species prepared to flee to distant systems. Others discussed surrender terms. A few maintained hope that combined council forces could mount an effective defense despite the overwhelming odds. On Earth, similar emergency sessions took place in secure underground facilities. President Martinez reviewed intelligence reports while military leaders finalized preparations that had been months in the making. The hegemony is moving faster than projected, General Hayes reported. They've accelerated their timeline by several weeks. Our fleet deployments will need to adjust accordingly. Are we ready? Martinez asked. All primary squadrons have completed final testing. The new drive systems are performing beyond specifications. Weapons testing exceeded all projections. Dr. Walsh, the elderly physicist who had overseen Earth's technological development, reviewed technical data on multiple screens. The gravitational manipulation systems are stable across all platforms. Energy output remains within safe parameters. We can deploy whenever you give the order. Martinez studied star charts showing hegemony fleet positions. Then it's time to attend our first council meeting. Make final preparations for fleet deployment. Earth has been silent long enough. Across the galaxy, the hegemony ultimatum countdown continued. 72 hours to choose between submission and annihilation. Most species saw only two options, both leading to the end of their independence. But on a small blue world that had missed every council meeting, a third option prepared to reveal itself to an unsuspecting universe. Chaos filled the council chamber as delegates argued over surrender terms. 12 hours remained until the hegemony deadline, and still no viable defense strategy had emerged. Several species had already withdrawn their representatives, abandoning the alliance to save themselves. Ambassador Crix stood before the fragmenting assembly, his carapace dulled with exhaustion. 3 days of continuous emergency sessions had produced nothing but despair and finger-pointing. The once proud Galactic Council was dissolving before his eyes. "Order! Please, we must maintain some dignity in our final hours as a unified government," Crix pleaded. His words echoed in the half-empty chamber as more delegates prepared to leave. Ambassador Thel had already begun transmitting surrender documents to his home government. The slug-like being's form trembled as he spoke into his communicator. "The Gordian Collective formally withdraws from the Galactic Council effective immediately. We will negotiate separate terms with the hegemony." Nas coiled his reptilian body tighter around his chair, yellow eyes darting between exit routes. "The scale-born worlds follow suit. This alliance has proven useless against real threats." Admiral Vec remained at his post, studying tactical displays that showed hegemony fleets in final attack positions. As a military professional, he felt obligated to witness the end of everything he had sworn to protect. His aquatic features showed resignation as he monitored approaching enemy forces. "Multiple hegemony battle groups are moving into final positions," he reported to anyone still listening. 800 vessels now confirmed. First strikes will begin in 11 hours and 47 minutes. The remaining delegates barely reacted to his updates. They had heard the same hopeless reports for days. The numbers never changed, only grew worse as more enemy ships joined the assault formation. Suddenly, every alarm system on the council station activated simultaneously. Red warning lights bathed the chamber in crimson, as automated voices announced emergency conditions in multiple languages. Delegates froze in their seats as the familiar sounds of approaching danger filled the air. Admiral Vec rushed to the tactical station, his webbed hands dancing over controls as he tried to identify the source of the alerts. His gill slits fluttered with confusion as data streamed across his screens. Unknown contacts emerging from hyperspace, multiple vessels appearing on long-range sensors, he announced, his voice cutting through the alarm noise. Configuration, unknown, not matching any database records. The main viewing screen activated, showing space around the council station. As delegates watched in amazement, sleek ships materialized from the bright flashes of hyperspace transitions. The vessels appeared in perfect formation, their dark hulls seeming to absorb light rather than reflect it. "How many ships?" Crix demanded, hope flickering in his compound eyes for the first time in days. Vec's voice dropped to a whisper as he read the sensor data. 127 vessels confirmed. Mass readings are impossible. I have never seen ships of this size moving at these velocities. The lead vessel dwarfed everything else in the formation, a massive dreadnought that made hegemony capital ships look like escort craft. Energy patterns pulsed along its hull in ways that made seasoned military officers feel uneasy. The entire formation radiated contained power that seemed to bend space around them. A communication request appeared on the council's main screen. Admiral Vec accepted the transmission with trembling hands, uncertain what to expect. The screen flickered, then displayed a human in a crisp military uniform. "Galactic Council, this is Admiral Thompson of the Terran Space Force," the human said, his voice calm and professional. "We apologize for our extended absence from your meetings. We have been preparing for this moment." Complete silence gripped the chamber. Delegates stared at the screen in shock as the implications sank in. The humans who had never attended a single session had arrived with the most impressive fleet anyone had ever seen. Crix found his voice first, though his mandibles trembled as he spoke. "Admiral Thompson, we had no indication that Earth possessed such capabilities. Your previous communications suggested much more limited resources." The human's expression remained neutral, but his eyes carried the confidence of someone who held all the advantages. "We prefer to observe before acting, Ambassador Crix. We have been watching galactic politics for 3 years, learning from your debates and decisions." Behind Admiral Thompson, the Terran fleet maintained perfect formation. Each ship pulsed with energy signatures that confused Council sensors. The technology appeared decades ahead of anything in their databases, yet Earth had been dismissed as primitive only hours before. "We understand the hegemony has made certain demands regarding Council territories," Thompson continued. "We are here to discuss alternative arrangements." Ambassador Thell's slug-like form quivered with sudden hope. "You would oppose the hegemony? But their fleet numbers in the hundreds, even with your impressive ships." "Numbers matter less than capability," Thompson replied. "We have studied hegemony tactics and technology extensively. Their approach to warfare is quite predictable." Admiral Vec pulled up sensor readings that made no sense according to known physics. The Terran ships generated gravitational fields that folded space around them. Their weapons arrays showed power outputs that should have required massive reactor complexes, yet the vessels maintained streamlined profiles. "Your technology appears to exceed our understanding," Vec observed. "How did Earth develop such advanced systems without Council knowledge?" "Humans learn quickly when properly motivated," Thompson answered. "We reviewed every technical document in your databases, studied every ship design, analyzed every battle report. Then we improved upon them." The communication channel expanded to show more of the Terran flagship's bridge. Human officers worked at stations displaying information that made Council scientists gasp. 3-dimensional tactical displays showed real-time positions of every ship within light years. Gravitational sensors tracked mass movements across entire star systems. "The hegemony fleet will arrive in 11 hours, Thompson announced. "We suggest you allow us to handle the military aspects of this situation. The Terran Republic has no interest in seeing Council worlds fall under foreign occupation." Orth, the energy being, pulsed with amazement and gratitude. "You would defend us, even though we ignored Earth's membership for 3 years?" "Council membership includes mutual defense obligations," Thompson replied matter-of-factly. "We take our commitment seriously, even when others do not." As if summoned by his words, long-range sensors detected new contacts. The hegemony fleet had accelerated their timeline, arriving ahead of schedule. 800 vessels dropped out of hyperspace in a massive formation designed to intimidate through sheer numbers. Fleet Commander Zeth's cybernetic features appeared on screens throughout the system as he broadcast his final ultimatum. "Inhabitants of this pathetic alliance, witness the power of true civilization. Submit now, or face complete annihilation." Admiral Thompson checked a device on his wrist, then addressed his bridge crew. "All ships prepare for combat operations, target military systems only. Let us show the galaxy what human engineering can accomplish when properly applied." The Terran fleet began moving into attack formation, their dark hulls shifting through space like hunting predators. Whatever happened in the next few hours would determine the fate of dozens of worlds and millions of lives. Earth had finally come to its first council meeting, and they had brought friends. Space erupted into activity as 2 vastly different philosophies of warfare prepared to clash. The hegemony fleet spread across the star system in a formation designed to maximize intimidation. 800 vessels of various sizes created a wall of metal and weapons that had crushed dozens of civilizations. Fleet Commander Zeth broadcast from his flagship, the massive dreadnought Inevitable Conquest. His cybernetic implants glowed with confidence as he addressed both the Council station and the mysterious human fleet that had dared to challenge him. "Primitive creatures from the rim worlds, you face the combined might of the hegemony coalition. We have conquered civilizations far more advanced than your pathetic alliance. Withdraw now and we may allow your species to serve as workers in our new order." The hegemony formation was impressive by any standard. Massive dreadnoughts anchored the center, their hulls bristling with antimatter cannons capable of cracking planets. Escort ships swarmed around them like metal insects, their numbers alone enough to overwhelm most defensive fleets. Admiral Thompson studied the enemy formation from his flagship's bridge. Human officers worked calmly at their stations, analyzing hegemony ship designs and weapon systems. Everything matched their intelligence reports perfectly. The enemy had not evolved their tactics in decades. "Commander Zeth," Thompson replied, his voice carrying across all frequencies. "I have reviewed your military record. 23 conquered. World's 600 million casualties, those numbers end today." Zeth's cybernetic laughter echoed through space. "Your threats amuse me, flesh creature. My dreadnoughts have reduced entire star systems to rubble. What can 100 primitive ships accomplish against such power?" "Perhaps you would like a demonstration of human military doctrine," Thompson said calmly. "We call it overwhelming force applied with surgical precision." The Terran fleet began moving into combat formation, and immediately, the hegemony sensors registered impossible readings. The human ships seemed to fade in and out of detection range, their dark hulls bending light and energy around them. Even the Council's advanced sensor arrays struggled to maintain target locks. Admiral Vec watched from the Council station in fascination and terror. "Their ships are generating some kind of interference field. Our sensors can barely track their positions." "Stealth technology?" Ambassador Crix asked, his compound eyes straining to follow the Terran movements on the viewing screens. "Beyond stealth," Vec replied, his webbed hands dancing over controls. "They are manipulating space-time itself. The gravitational fields around their hulls are creating localized distortions." The hegemony fleet responded predictably, forming into their standard attack formation. Dreadnoughts moved to the front while escorts spread out to prevent flanking maneuvers. It was the same tactic they had used successfully for decades, relying on superior numbers and firepower to crush opposition. But the Terran fleet did not behave like previous enemies. Instead of meeting the hegemony formation head-on, the human ships scattered into small groups that moved independently. Each group consisted of ships that seemed to flow around each other like a school of fish, their movements coordinated to a degree that suggested shared consciousness. "What are they doing?" Nas wondered, his reptilian features tense with concern. "They are dividing their forces against a numerically superior enemy." Admiral Thompson's voice cut through the tension as he addressed his fleet. "All vessels weapons-free, target military systems only. Disable when possible, destroy when necessary. Show them what happens when humans prepare for war." The Terran ships opened fire simultaneously, and space itself seemed to scream in protest. The human weapons did not produce the familiar energy, beams or plasma torpedoes that dominated galactic warfare. Instead, they tore holes in reality itself, creating gravitational anomalies that folded enemy ships like paper. The first hegemony dreadnought simply collapsed inward as gravity increased around it by a factor of 1,000. 2 kilometers of armored hull compressed into a sphere barely 50 meters across before the gravitational field dissipated, leaving only a dense ball of metal floating in space. "Impossible!" Zeth screamed over the communication channels. "No weapon can manipulate gravity on that scale." More Terran weapons fired, each shot creating localized distortions in space-time. Hegemony ships found themselves twisted into impossible shapes as the fabric of reality bent around them. Escort vessels vanished into micro-black holes that appeared and disappeared in seconds. The efficiency was terrifying. Every human shot found its target, every target was eliminated or disabled. The Terran fleet moved through the hegemony formation like a surgeon's blade, cutting away resistance with clinical precision. Admiral Vec could barely believe the sensor readings. In 3 minutes, they have eliminated over 200 enemy vessels. Their accuracy rate is 100%, not a single miss. The hegemony fleet tried to adapt, but their traditional tactics proved useless against an enemy that could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. Energy shields meant nothing when gravity itself became a weapon. Armor plating provided no protection against forces that could compress matter into singularities. Commander Zeth's flagship launched every weapon in its arsenal at the nearest Terran vessel, a sleek destroyer that had just eliminated 3 escort ships. Antimatter beams and plasma torpedoes engulfed the human ship in a display of firepower that could have vaporized a small moon. When the energy dissipated, the Terran destroyer emerged completely undamaged. Its hull had not even been scorched. Whatever protection systems the humans used, they rendered conventional weapons obsolete. "Our most powerful weapons have no effect," one of Zeth's officers reported, his voice cracking with fear. How is this possible? The answer came in the form of return fire. The Terran destroyer's response was a single gravitational pulse that reached across space and seized the inevitable conquest. The massive dreadnought began to fold in on itself as local gravity increased beyond all physical laws. Zeth's final transmission was an electronic shriek as his ship's 2-kilometer length compressed into a sphere barely visible to the naked eye. The flagship that had terrorized dozens of worlds became a footnote in a battle that lasted less than 5 minutes. The remaining hegemony vessels attempted to retreat, but the Terran fleet anticipated their movements perfectly. Gravitational fields trapped fleeing ships like insects in amber, while human vessels methodically disabled or destroyed them. When the battle ended, 800 hegemony warships had been reduced to wreckage and debris. Not a single Terran vessel showed damage. The human fleet reformed its original formation as if nothing significant had occurred. Admiral Thompson's voice carried across all frequencies as he addressed the scattered remains of the enemy force. Any hegemony personnel who wish to surrender should power down their weapons and prepare to be boarded. Medical assistance will be provided to survivors. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the most feared military force in known space was utterly defeated by beings they had considered primitive only hours before. The demonstration had been so complete, so overwhelming, that it redefined everyone's understanding of what was possible in warfare. On the council station, delegates stared at their screens in awe and terror. Earth had not just won a battle, they had announced themselves as the new dominant power in the galaxy. The humans who skipped meetings were now writing the rules for everyone else. The council station had become the center of the galaxy's attention overnight. Ships from dozens of species arrived hourly, all carrying ambassadors desperate to meet with Earth's representatives. The corridors buzzed with activity as beings, who had previously dismissed human membership, now competed for access to their delegation. Ambassador Rivera walked through the station's main concourse, flanked by human technical advisors whose mere presence seemed to make the facility's systems operate more efficiently. She wore a simple diplomatic uniform, but carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone representing the galaxy's new dominant power. The council chamber had been completely reconfigured for the emergency diplomatic session. Every seat was filled, with additional observers standing along the walls. Representatives from species who had never shown interest in council proceedings now hung on every word. The Terran Republic wishes to formally apologize for our absence from previous sessions, Rivera began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber without electronic amplification. We felt it necessary to observe and understand galactic political dynamics before contributing to important discussions. The transformation in attitude was immediate and absolute. Ambassador Crix, whose carapace now gleamed with nervous perspiration, leaned forward eagerly. "Ambassador Rivera, your fleet's capabilities far exceeded our expectations. We had no indication Earth possessed such advanced technology." "Humans have always been quick learners," Rivera replied with a diplomatic smile. "We studied every ship design, every weapon system, every tactical manual available in your databases. Then we applied human engineering principles to improve upon them." Dr. Hansen, Earth's chief scientist, activated a holographic display that made even the advanced Voidkin representatives pulse with amazement. The technical specifications shown defied conventional understanding of physics and engineering. "Our gravitational manipulation technology represents a fundamental departure from traditional approaches to space warfare," Hansen explained. "Where other species rely on brute force applications of energy, we learn to redirect the universe's own forces to achieve our objectives." Questions came rapidly from the assembled delegates. How had Earth developed such revolutionary technology so quickly? Why had they concealed their capabilities? What were their intentions regarding galactic governance? Admiral Thompson, who had remained aboard his flagship during the diplomatic preparations, appeared via holographic projection to address military concerns. His presence commanded immediate attention from every delegate in the chamber. The hegemony. Coalition represented a clear and present danger to civilized space, Thompson stated matter-of-factly. We eliminated that threat using appropriate force. As for our technology, we are prepared to share certain innovations with council members who demonstrate genuine commitment to peaceful coexistence. The offer sent shockwaves through the assembly. Access to human technology could revolutionize entire civilizations. Species that had struggled with basic fusion power might leapfrog to gravitational manipulation. Military forces that relied on conventional weapons could gain access to reality-altering capabilities. Ambassador Thel slid forward on his specialized platform, his slug-like form practically prostrating itself before the human delegation. The Gordian Collective would be deeply honored to establish formal diplomatic relations with Terra. Perhaps we might discuss mutual defense agreements and technology-sharing protocols. Similar requests came from every delegation present. Trade, concessions, territorial agreements, scientific collaborations, and military partnerships were offered with desperate enthusiasm. The same species who had mocked Earth's absence now competed to curry favor with their new protectors. Rivera maintained her professional demeanor while taking careful notes. The fear was almost tangible in the chamber. Not just fear of human, military might, but terror at the intelligence that had created it. Every representative present realized the uncomfortable truth that humans had been quietly studying them for years, learning their weaknesses and preparing for every possible scenario. The Terran Republic values peaceful cooperation above all other considerations, Rivera assured the assembly. We look forward to productive relationships with all council members. However, we should be clear about our expectations regarding future interspecies conduct. She activated a holographic star map showing the former hegemony territories. These worlds are now under Terran protection until legitimate governments can be established. Any future military actions in council space will be subject to our review and approval. We believe in proportional responses to aggressive behavior. The message could not have been clearer. Earth had announced itself not as a member of the Galactic Council, but as its de facto ruler. The humans who had skipped every meeting were now setting policy for everyone else. Nas coiled his reptilian body nervously as he addressed the human delegation. What of species who prefer to maintain independence from council authority? The scaleborn worlds have always valued autonomy. Autonomy is perfectly acceptable, Rivera replied smoothly, as long as it does not involve aggression against neighboring systems or violations of basic sentient rights. We have no interest in micromanaging peaceful civilizations. The subtle threat was unmistakable. Earth would tolerate independence, but not interference with their vision of galactic order. The same technology that had eliminated the hegemony could be applied to any species that stepped out of line. Ambassador Orth pulsed with curious light patterns as the energy being asked about humanity's long-term plans. Will Earth seek to establish colonies in former hegemony space? Your population could expand significantly with access to multiple worlds. Humans prefer to improve existing worlds rather than abandon them for new ones, Rivera answered. We will help rebuild hegemony territories and return them to their original inhabitants when possible. Species that were absorbed into their war machine will be given the opportunity to re-establish their civilizations. The generosity of the offer surprised many delegates, but the underlying message remained clear. Earth could afford to be magnanimous, because they faced no serious challengers. Their demonstration against the hegemony had eliminated any potential opposition. Dr. Hansen provided technical briefings that made scientists from advanced civilizations feel like primitive students. Human understanding of physics had apparently surpassed anything in council databases. Their ability to manipulate fundamental forces opened possibilities that other species had never imagined. We would be happy to establish research partnerships with qualified institutions, Hansen offered, though we must be selective about which technologies we share. Some applications require careful consideration before deployment. The session concluded with formal agreements being drafted for later approval. Earth would assume primary responsibility for galactic security, while maintaining the council as a forum for diplomatic discussion. Other species could maintain their internal affairs while accepting human oversight of interstellar matters. As delegates filed out to contact their governments, Admiral Thompson shared a private moment with President Martinez via secure communication. "The transition appears to be proceeding smoothly, Madam President. No significant resistance to our new role." "They learned the lesson we intended," Martinez replied from her office beneath the Colorado mountains. "Underestimating humanity carries consequences. What about long-term stability? Fear will maintain order in the short term. Building genuine cooperation will take more time, but we have established the foundation for a more peaceful galaxy." Through the viewing ports of the Council Station, the Terran fleet maintained its patient vigil. The dark hulls reflected starlight in patterns that seemed to shift and flow, a constant reminder of the power that now protected galactic civilization. Captain Torres observed the alien representatives hurrying through the corridors, their movements quick and purposeful as they sought meetings with human officials. "Think they understand the new reality, Admiral?" Thompson gazed out at his fleet, ships that represented decades of secret preparation and the finest achievements of human engineering. "They understand that challenging Earth would be suicide. Whether they develop wisdom beyond that fear remains to be seen." The transformation was already visible throughout the galaxy. Trade routes that had been disrupted by hegemony threats reopened within days. Worlds that had prepared for evacuation began reconstruction projects. The terror that had paralyzed dozens of civilizations for months vanished overnight. But the most significant change was in how other species viewed humanity. The primitive, newcomers who had been dismissed as irrelevant, were now studied with intense fascination. Human history, culture, and philosophy became required reading in diplomatic academies across the galaxy. Earth's educational institutions suddenly found themselves flooded with requests for exchange programs. Military academies wanted to understand human tactical thinking. Scientists sought access to research that had produced impossible technologies. Philosophers wondered what drove a species to such extraordinary achievement. Ambassador Rivera concluded her first formal session as Earth's primary representative to the Council. The empty chair that had symbolized human absence for 3 years now anchored the chamber's new power structure. Every major decision would flow through that position. "The Terran Republic looks forward to an era of unprecedented cooperation and prosperity," she announced to the assembled delegates. "Together we will build a galaxy where disputes are resolved through dialogue rather than warfare." The applause was enthusiastic, though Rivera recognized the fear that motivated much of it. Genuine partnership would take time to develop, for now enforced peace would have to suffice while trust gradually replaced terror. As the session ended and delegates returned to their quarters, the galaxy settled into its new configuration. The hegemony's remnants were being processed by Terran forces with efficiency that impressed even Council observers. Survivors received medical treatment and were being relocated to worlds of their choosing. The speed of the transition amazed everyone except the humans themselves. They had planned for this moment for 3 years, developing not just military capabilities but comprehensive strategies for post-conflict reconstruction. Every detail had been considered and prepared. In the depths of space, automated systems began dismantling the massive hegemony fleet yards that had threatened galactic peace for decades. The resources would be recycled into civilian infrastructure, projects turning instruments of war into tools for rebuilding. Earth had finally taken its seat at the galactic table, but the table itself had been fundamentally restructured. The humans who had missed every council meeting were now writing the agenda for everyone else. The galaxy had learned that silence did not mean weakness and absence did not indicate disinterest. The age of human stewardship had begun, whether other species welcomed it or not.